Hello everyone, this is part 5 of the Voyager build. Now this will be the last video on this build because after months of waiting for those decals that I ordered, they finally arrived. And when I cut them to get ready to put them on this model, I've discovered that those decals do not fit this model, even though the listing says that they're for it. So the guy that I ordered the decals from on eBay, I am never going to order from him again because he's got other decals for other Star Trek models, and if the ones he made for this model didn't fit, chances are the other decal sets that he's made, they don't fit the models that they go to either. So now the only thing I can do to cover up some of the flaws in this model is to just do another paint job on it, which is what you see me doing right now. I'm just taking some AK light gray and adding some more color to the model. And then once I'm done with all that, I'm going to be repainting some of the areas around the windows, which are where most of the flaws in this model are. And then once I'm done with that, I am just going to scratch out the windows. Alright, now I'm just redoing the paint job on the top side. And now I'm just adding some light gray hull panels in the saucer area. And then once those dry, I'm going to hit this model again with the main hull color. Thankfully I have some of it left. Not a lot. But hopefully I have enough left to finish this model. Then once I'm done with that, I'm going to do some touch-up work here and there on the model. And then once all that's done, I'm going to start scratching out the windows. Now, these darker gray hull panels you see are some leftover paint colors I have from some other Star Trek builds. Now, I didn't want to repaint those window areas black, but I might have to in some parts. But for those other parts I didn't have to, that dark gray hull color, it seemed to work pretty good. And some of the other window areas that I did have to repaint black, thankfully they weren't many of them. And they were pretty small areas, so all I had to do was tape those small areas off, spray it down with black, and then spray it down again with the main hull color, or these other colors you see me using. Alright, I finished painting the hull panels on the top side, and then I sprayed it down with the main hull color, using it like a blending coat to lighten those gray panels up a little. And now I got to do some touch-ups here and there, and then I'll get started on the bottom half. Alright, now I'm getting started on the underside. Now I'm just going along, lightly spraying down the whole model with the main hull color. And then once I'm done with that, I know I'm going to have to do some touch-ups. I'm going to have to repaint some of the phaser strips, as well as some other details. But hopefully when all this is done, this model will look better than it did when I took the window masks off. Alright, I'm done lightening up the hull with the main hull color. Now I'm just repainting some of the details, like the two topside sensor arrays and the ones on the side of the saucer. I'm just gonna repaint all of them with metallic gray, and then I'm going to use a paint marker to add some small detail color in them, and then I'm going to move on to some other details. Okay, I knew I was going to redo these phaser strips once I was done with all the repainting I was doing. So I just finished doing the topside phaser strips. I just masked them off and repainted them with Tamiya Sky Gray. And now I am getting ready to do the underside strips. Alright, now I'm just finishing up the last of the underside phaser strips. Just masking off each one and then painting them with Tamiya Sky Gray. And then once I'm done with all this, I'm going to move on to the next detail I have to touch up. Okay, now I've masked off and I'm getting ready to repaint the yellow details on this model. Basically, I'm just repainting the RCS thrusters with a yellow and reddish mix. I'm also repainting these yellow strips on the sides of the nacelles. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to move on to the small details I was going to put in the sensor arrays on top of the saucer. Okay, now I'm getting ready to add some small details into these sensor arrays on top of the saucer, but first I'm going to mask them off. That way the paint and these paint markers don't get out anywhere. Now, I only have 3 colors to work with. I only have copper, I have gold, and I have silver. So I'm just going to use them. I'm not going to do too much. I just want to put some color in there. Because usually I don't really put a lot of color into these areas whenever I do a Voyager model. Alright, now I'm getting ready to apply the topside decals. Now, remember what I said earlier in the video when I had a set of decals I got for this model. It turned out they didn't fit. But I found 1 or 2 of them that do fit where they go, so those ones I'll use. But the rest of them, I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. I guess I could go through them again and see if I can find some more that fit in the spots where they're supposed to go. And if I don't, maybe I can find a way to make them fit. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find out. And right now, I'm just putting the decals up on the bridge area. And thankfully, there aren't many of those. What I'm doing is basically just laying them down, getting any excess water off with a Q-tip, and then I apply the decal setting solution. Now, this is going to take me a while to do, and you're not going to have to watch me apply all the decals. You're going to see the end result. Well, here is the results of 4 hours of work putting on each and every one of these decals, from these big ones all the way to the small ones. I even put some of the ones on the side. And let me tell you, messing with these smaller ones is a real challenge. Some of them just want to go their own way. You really gotta force them to stay in place. Now, I've only done the top side decals and the 2 pennant decals you saw on the sides. And once these top side decals are dried in place, I'll start working on the underside decals. Now here's the top side USS Midway name and registry number decal put on, and it looks good. Now for the registry number, I went on Wikipedia and I looked up the date for when the Battle of Midway took place. And that is what I used for the registry number. Alright, now I'm putting on the underside decals. And as you can see, I've already put on half of them. But you don't get to sit through watching me put on the other half. You get to see the end results. Okay, now the underside of the model is all decaled up. And every decal on this thing took me about 2.5 hours to do. And now I'm going to let this thing sit for a few hours, let all the decals dry, and then I'm going to hit this thing with a flat coat and seal those decals in place. And I've also decided that I'm going to glue the nacelles in the warp position, making it look like the ship is at warp. And then I'm going to get ready to put it onto its base. Okay, I've given the decals at least 4 hours to dry, and now I'm going to hit them with this all-clad matted clear coat. Now, the way my air compressor sprays this stuff out, I know it's going to take 2 passes to coat this whole model with this clear coat, which is fine with me because I want to make sure that this whole thing is covered and all those decals are totally sealed in place. Okay, once the clear coat dries, the next step in this build will be getting the model here onto the base. And the nameplate here, here's a close-up look. USS Midway, named after the World War II Battle of Midway. Now I haven't decided whether to put it here or put it here. Well, I'll make a decision at some point. I haven't reached that part of the build yet. And here is the nav strobe board I will be using. It's the Tenna Controls nav circuit board with multiple settings. And I've decided on this build that I'm going to make the red and green nav strobes blink like they do on the refit. Mostly because I want this to look like a different ship from Voyager. I mean, yeah, it's the same type of ship that Voyager is, but I want the look to be different. Okay, now I've decided to do a little work on the base here. And I don't want this part right here to look as plain as it does. So I got a decal to put there, but it's going to be a while before that Star Trek decal gets here, so I'm going to add something else to it. Just let me look through my stash. Okay, I've looked through my stash and I've got these galaxy backdrops. And I need to figure out which one I want to put here. I want to put this one, or do I want to use the orange one? And I've used the orange one for a lot of things, so I'm going to go with this one. Okay, now that I've picked the one I want to go with, I need to figure out how much of this thing I'm going to need to cut out in order to put it on top of the base. Alright, now I've got the piece cut. I do need to trim some off of it, but I can do that after it's been put on the base. And that is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to put it on the base, and you get to see the end results. Alright, here's the end result. Now, I did have a bit of trouble getting it on, but I managed to get it on there without a whole lot of trouble. Now I'm just using this little torch to heat it up around the edges, because that'll help with the adhesion. It'll keep the decal sticking to this base. And now, once I'm done with this, I gotta cut out the hole for the mounting rod in the center. And then I'm gonna go ahead and glue the nameplate onto the front of the base. Okay, now here's the nameplate, and I'm going to glue it onto the front of the base here. And first I need to measure out the distance to make sure I got the plate centered. And I need to use the mounting rod to help me with that. Okay, this thing is as centered as I'm going to get it. So now I'm just going to put some glue on the front of the base. And then I'm going to put the nameplate down and wipe away any glue that leaks out. And then I'm going to take 2 clamps and clamp this thing down until the glue dries. Okay, now a last minute thing I decided to do to this base is to put some blue LED lights on the underside and have them shining downward, since the base is going to be slightly elevated, so you're going to be able to see light shining underneath it. Okay, now I'm just testing the on and off switch, see if it'll fit the hole. Now, originally there was a momentary switch in that hole for a photon firing board, but I've decided that I'm not going to get one of those for this model. The red LEDs I put in for the photon firing effects, they're just going to be connected to the main power. They're just going to be on all the time. Now I just need to pick out the length that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be putting them on all four corners. And then I'm going to spray the underside of this base with a little bit of white, just to brighten it up a little bit, but not too much. Okay, I've got the LED strips wired up and put in, and now it's time to test them out. Oh, that ain't too bad. Not too bad at all. Well, let me turn the overhead lights here off. Might be able to see it a little bit better. You can see it now, but maybe you can see it better with the lights off. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, now that this is done, I'm going to put the base aside and wait for the other decal I ordered for it to get here, and once that's done, I'll put the model onto the base. Okay, now I've got the model on the base. Now this is just a test fitting. Now, I haven't decided if I want the model pointing in this direction or if I want it pointing in this direction. Usually, I make it so the model can be turned left or right, but I'm not going to do that with this one. I'm just going to have it pointing in a single direction, whichever makes it look good for being displayed. Okay, after a week of waiting, the decal I ordered has finally arrived. And now I gotta trim some of this off so I can figure out how I'm going to center this. And once I got that done, I'll apply it to the base. Okay, now that I've trimmed some of this off, I gotta move it around until it looks like it is centered on this base. And then once I've got it centered, I'm going to put some pieces of tape on it to hold it in place, so I can remove the backing and then apply it to the base. Alright, now it looks like I've got it centered. Now I'm just putting some pieces of masking tape on it to help hold it in place, so I can remove the backing, and then I'm just going to gently and very carefully apply it. Alright, now that I got the backing off, I am just very carefully and as gently as I can applying the decal to the base, using this card to rub out any air bubbles that might get caught. And if I don't get all of them, I can always take an X-Acto and poke them out. And then I'm going to take a little butane lighter I have and apply a little heat to it. And then I'm going to rub it down again and see if that helps to get rid of these air bubbles. Okay, I've gotten the decal onto the base. Everything looks good. Now I'm just applying a little heat to it. Make sure it sticks down real good. And then I need to cut out the hole in the center for the mounting rod. And then once all that is done, it's a simple matter of threading the wiring through the hole, mixing up a little epoxy glue, and then epoxy gluing the model onto the base. Okay, now before I epoxy glue the model onto the base, I want to do a little light test because I can't remember if I put resistors on these wires that go to the photon torpedo lights. So I'm going to do a simple lighting test to see if these lights will run on 9 to 12 volts. And if they do, that means I put a resistor on them. Okay, I've got the wiring threaded through the hole. I just got to put the mounting rod in. And then I got to mix up some 5-minute epoxy and epoxy glue this thing in place. And then I'm going to clamp it down and let the epoxy glue dry overnight before I do anything else. Alright, I've got the epoxy glue onto the mounting rod and put back into the hole. Now I'm just putting some clamps on it, and I'm going to leave it in this position and let the epoxy glue dry overnight. Okay, I've already gone ahead and wired up all the main lighting, and as you can see, it's all working pretty good. Now I'm going to get ready to hook up the nav strobe board, and once that's done, this build will be finished. Okay, now I'm wiring up the nav strobe board, and sometimes I forget how to hook this nav strobe board up, so I have to go back and look at some of the models I've used this nav strobe board on, just to remember how everything is all hooked up. And once I do that, it all comes back to me and I remember how it goes. And then I just get to work soldering the wiring together and making sure to put some shrink wrap on it so it's protected. Alright, everything's all soldered together. Now let's see if it all works. And so far so good, everything's working. The nav strobes are all blinking. I'm not seeing any issues. I think I can call this build done. Well, let me turn the lights off and you can get a look at it in low lighting. Okay, here the model is in low lighting. And again, I'm not seeing any issues. And despite all the hassle and all the problems this build gave me, it came out alright. I mean, it's not going to win first place in any contest, but I'm happy with how it's turned out. Okay, now here are some quick beauty shots of the model. I'll do a more impressive display video of the model later on, but for now I'm calling this build and this build series done. Hope you enjoyed watching. Please leave any comments on what you think of the build in the comments section. And again, thank you for watching.